Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Good to see you.
Timing is just perfect.
Everybody got that in stereo.
Yep. I'm good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I was fooling around with some new headphones, and that took longer than I thought.
What kind did you get?
I have... I have to read it. It's a long... It's the good Sony ones. I'm pulling up my Amazon order.
I was going to say I'm not really up to speed on my different headphones at this point, so I don't really know what the good Sony ones would be.
It's the WH-1000XM3.
You like them so far?
Well, the reason I had a little bit of a difficulty is that I got the international version, and it's not the when you turn them on, it does the hey, power on thing. It's not in English. I don't know what language I don't know what language it's in, and I'm gonna have to see if I can change the language.
Do you use them wireless when we record?
No, I use wire when I record.
Wasn't sure. I know the ones that I have are Audio-Technica, and I can use them Bluetooth for normal headphone usage, and then I plug them in for monitoring when we record.
Yeah, I'm plugging them in for recording, and then I can use them for Bluetooth elsewhere.
So I saw we had a number of things that you put in as follow-up.
I did. You had the first bit of follow-up, but it might be a little bit longer than my follow-up, so
Actually, I don't think it will be, because it's not far enough in on the things that I've done to really have much to report yet.
All right, go for it.
So the question was just, after I've talked about the network stuff a number of times, how is it? And I made a few tweaks. Instead of being as lazy as I have been and just setting the access points on a shelf, I at least moved them and positioned them in a way to hopefully appropriately distribute the wireless signal. I don't know that that's going to make a huge difference, but we'll see. The one thing I did notice, though, was I had erroneously set a setting related to quality of service and was horribly restricting my bandwidth per client. So I did address that, and we'll see if maybe that plays a role.
Oh, yeah. You're now bathed in beautiful, wonderful Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I had a couple of real odd things happen, though, that make me wonder if it's not a internal to the laptop actual issue. Like I actually had a random wireless disconnect and a kernel panic on a reboot after that.
Oh, wow.
And so we'll see. I don't know if that was a one-off or if that might be the source of all of my issues.
I haven't seen a kernel panic in such a long time. I did with my Mac Mini. Had a few times it shut down unexpectedly before not the last point release of Big Sur, but the one before that.
Yeah, I had not seen any issues up until this current release of Big Sur, point release, the 11.3.1 or something, 13.1. I don't remember the numbers. Whatever the current version is as of the time of recording.
It's 11.3.1.
Yeah, and that's the particular version that I had the kind of odd Wi-Fi dropout, restarted, and saw the kernel panic, and it rebooted. So I don't know for sure what's going on. I haven't seen any other indications of an issue, and to be fair, I haven't really dug into it, because until it happens a second time, I just kind of shrug it off.
Yeah, I had a problem going to either 11.2 or one of the points of 11.2. I don't remember which, but it was a couple of releases ago.
Yeah, all that to say is we'll see what happens.
You still capturing lots of logs?
I have decided to nuke that environment and rebuild it based on some lessons learned on how to deploy the Elastic Stack in general. So I was capturing them up until yesterday, and I will be capturing them again at some point over the next few days as I finish building that back out.
Gotcha. Well, that was pretty quick.
Yeah, told you. I didn't have enough to report yet. One side note on those logs, while I was capturing a lot of stuff, I still hadn't really gotten to the point where I was breaking it down and doing anything. So there may have been insights there that I have lost, but I decided until I rebuilt it in a way that actually made sense, it didn't really matter.
All right. Cool. My next bit of follow-up was about when we were talking about stores and restaurants. I was thinking about it at the time that we were talking about it, but I didn't remember exactly what it was. So I went back and found this. There was a TikTok video that sort of addressed mask wearing in public, quote unquote. Because, we were talking about even though, like a store is privately owned or privately leased property and it's open to the general public. So it's private property, but open to the public. And so, or members, like Costco or gyms or something like that. Those are members, it's members only, but, still public as opposed to a private home. Whereas like outdoors, public spaces, different thing. Anyway, there was a woman. She was a lawyer in California, and she had cited some penal codes about regarding how people are responding to mask wearing. So, she started her video with it's not discrimination if the mandate or the request is applied to everyone equally. So you can't scream discrimination for that. Whereas, if you picked a particular sector of the population and said, hey, only you people have to wear a mask, that would be a thing. Failure to wear a mask on private property and then being asked to leave and not leaving is criminal trespass, which is a misdemeanor. She gave the penal codes for California, so I looked them up for Alabama. And it followed, similar sort of thing. There are actually several different versions of criminal trespass or degrees of which, and they have differing they're considered different class of misdemeanors. And then whining and complaining after being asked to leave is considered disturbing the peace, which is also a misdemeanor.
Yeah, as I was reading over the notes, none of that surprised me. I guess we should have probably outlined that a bit better, though, in retrospect, as we were talking about it.
Well, I was thinking about it. I remembered hearing the thing, but I couldn't remember the specific details, and that's why we have follow-up.
And so I was going to say, I saw you had another piece because I remembered asking about the Tulum in general, and then we didn't actually cover that on the last show.
Yeah, so I was listening to the show before, and you were asking about Tulum, and the water was as gorgeous as I've ever seen. Like, I think probably the most gorgeous water I've seen was St. Lucia. Tulum was pretty close to it. They're, I would say, neck and neck. So, just different parts of the Caribbean, gorgeous waters. The Emerald Coast, the Panhandle, Florida, is really beautiful at its most beautiful, but not quite as good as Tulum or St. Lucia. I mean, pretty close. And so, it was gorgeous. I mean, there's shades of blue that I don't know that I'd seen anywhere else before.
Yeah, I would agree that the Panhandle has its moments, but I mean, I've been in that area plenty of times. Was close enough growing up that it was only a couple-hour trip, about 4 hours, and so we would make that pretty regularly and spent a lot of time all throughout the Panhandle, and I never recall anything that springs to mind as being as gorgeous as the waters of Tulum the one time that I visited.
There were some beaches that I went on the south side, the southern part of St. Lucia that I thought were just as pretty as Tulum. They're pretty, they're really beautiful. So, part of it was like, I guess it was probably the most beautiful beach, like every aspect of it was beautiful because it was a black sand beach. There was nobody there. There were rocks and cliffs, and there was also a nice beach area, and the water was just gorgeous, and like shades of blue, all sorts of shades of blue, which is really different than the north. Like the north side of the island is really different. So I would say it's beautiful too, but not as beautiful as the south side of the island. It's just, I think, more accessible for beach activity. Anyway, it's preferences are ranging. So I didn't go into the water in Tulum at all. At the archaeological site where the ruins are, they have now, when I went in, we talked about this a couple of shows ago. When I went in 2004, there was not an easy way to access the beach. And now there's like a wooden staircase, like deck stairs that go down to the beach. So if you want to go down the beach, but it was closed for COVID. I'm not sure why it's closed for COVID, other than maybe like they were concerned about crowds being on the stairway. Anyway, so it's closed for COVID. And I remember when I went to the ruins, and the last time I went, being able to walk around freely. Like you could go up and stand on the buildings, and now they're all pathways that are roped off so that you can't walk anywhere that you want. I don't know if that's related to COVID or if that's just the new way.
Yeah, I would expect it's probably partially just to prohibit deterioration from climbing or the other things that you would potentially have occur at a historical site that could damage it over time. The thing that comes to mind as far as closing a beach like that for COVID, what I remember is that you had to kind of funnel into an area to get down to the beach, and so I could potentially see some concern from a tourist, a general tourist attraction potentially being overcrowded at certain points and wanting to be overly cautious, perhaps. I assume that's still the case, but it may not be.
Whatever it is, there's no way to get down there once COVID's over.
What was the other point that you had in the notes about C notes?
So cenotes were, I'm sure I'm butchering the Spanish. Cenotes, I don't know.
I didn't take Spanish anyway, so C notes sound horribly American.
Oh man, it's spelled Cenotes, and I think that's the plural. They're sinkholes that are there's a lot of limestone in the area, and they're sinkholes that have formed and filled with water. And I'm not sure if it's spring water. Most of them are fresh water. There's one that I went to that was salt water, and one that I went to that was spring water, and they're gorgeous. It's what makes me think it might be spring water is that it's so clear and it's cold. So the Yucatan Peninsula has has over 6,000 cenotes, and it's some of the best swimming. One of them I went took a little kayak tour, and you could do snorkeling and even scuba diving, and it was really cool. So I would say if you're ever in the area on the Yucatan Peninsula, visit some cenotes. Like I could enjoy a trip of cenote hopping if that was
a thing.
I mean, I think it is a thing. I just my thought just ran out.
I could see it. The correlation that I thought of would be visiting a number of the different springs in the northern portion of Florida into South Georgia, South Alabama, potentially. I actually don't know how many would be in the southern Alabama and Georgia regions. I know there are a number of them in the northern Florida region. And most of the ones that I've only visited a handful of areas that are built around those types of springs, but the water's always been gorgeous as far as being clear. Now, it may not be a good-looking color, but it was always clear and enjoyable.
The ones, so there's a YouTube channel that I subscribe to. There's a guy based in Dothan, Alabama, and I've never seen him go to any freshwater springs in Alabama, but he heads down to the Panhandle of Florida and visits some of the most beautiful springs I've ever seen, and it's made me want to, like, there's a few that I want to visit, and I'm thinking maybe this summer might be a good time to do it. But it might involve like an overnight camping trip, and I don't know. But I think it would be a lot of fun.
So anecdotally, there were a couple of springs or a couple of areas fed by springs. Specifically, I'm thinking of Vortex Springs and Jenny Springs that are big camp/dive destinations because they're deep enough to do some scuba diving, and they have sections for just general swimming for casual goers, but they're built with campgrounds on site as well, and so those do go hand in hand.
That's really cool. The videos I've seen that this guy's done, they've been really nice for. Like he's done camping trips, and the water looks gorgeous. Like the prettier water attractions that I've seen. What I've noticed though is like there's not a lot of hot springs in this part of the United States.
I don't know that I've ever noticed anything labeled as a hot spring in the Southeast, unless you count Arkansas as the Southeast.
Yeah, so I've Arkansas's, I'm not sure.
I don't necessarily count it, but I'm sure many people do. So it's borderline.
It is I will say it is borderline, but there's some other, there's some influence with Missouri and Texas. Like Texas they get classified as Southern, but they're not exactly. They're Texas.
Yeah,
like
it is a thing in and of itself.
Even Louisiana is kind of a thing in and of itself because they have such a different French influence. So, So, and even Florida, even though it's in the South, it's not really. It's not a part of I wouldn't consider it part of the Dirty South.
No, it's very different. I guess the easiest way to summarize it for anyone who happens to listen that doesn't live in the area, Florida, Georgia, to an extent Mississippi, Kentucky, Tennessee, North and South Carolina, those are fairly easy to classify in a region. And to an extent Virginia. I think Virginia has a slightly different bent to it, but I think that's mostly because of the relationship to West Virginia
and DC.
But in general, like that region, you can definitely lump in a fairly similar cultural feel with varying degrees of difference. Florida is drastically different from all of those regions, as is Louisiana and Texas. And then the kind of ambiguity as far as where it falls surrounds like Arkansas and Missouri, because they're certainly more southern than they are, Midwestern, but they're also not as southern as that original clumping of states. There's just a real interesting divide when you spend time in each of those areas that you start to see.
Right. So, like, I think about the Confederate States of America to being sort of like
I sense where you're going, and there's definitely an aspect to it.
And that would include Texas and Arkansas. But as time has passed, Texas has definitely taken their own turn. They were independent for a bit. I don't know if that was before or after the Civil War, American Civil War. But Arkansas was included in that. But Kentucky was not in Kentucky was forced. I think I believe Kentucky was forced to stay in the Union. And, in school, like when we were growing up, and I don't know if I would assume they continue to teach about the Mason-Dixon line, but one of the best demarcations I've ever heard for the South is the sweet tea line. So in whatever direction you're headed, if you order tea and they give you sweet iced tea, you're still in the South. And as soon as you're given unsweetened tea, it's now not the South.
Yeah, I could agree that that's pretty solidly descriptive of what you would expect.
Right. And I think I like it because the sweet tea line is not border specific. It's cultural. It's more cultural than anything else. And I think that really is the most, I feel like the best determinant factor. Or a cultural determinant factor, not a border or a river of some sort. Not an official line of demarcation.
Right. Not something that's just drawn on a map and is convenient, but something that's actually specific to the norms of the area.
Exactly.
So you had another item in follow-up that you scratched through that I added a comment to. Do you have anything to go into with that, or did you decide that it wasn't worth mentioning?
Well, it's not that it wasn't worth mentioning. Last week I mentioned about ambiguity in the Constitution over who is president under certain circumstances, and a lot of that idea was based on some episodes of The West Wing, which I'm going to trust Aaron Sorkin and his writing staff to have gotten that right, but I didn't go back and look it up, and that's why I scratched it out. It's not that I didn't want to follow up on it, I just hadn't done the work.
Gotcha. That's fine. I just wasn't sure because from the two words, I could have inferred a number of different things, but I didn't think the current administration had been overly ambiguous, so I wasn't sure, where it fell.
Yeah. That's that. I now, in my head, I'm like thinking of one specific thing, and looking back at the words that I wrote, I was like, oh, that was an incredibly ambiguous statement or point.
So I think that leaves us two predominant topics. Of the two, it seems like the second one is probably worth going into first, just from
that's exactly what I was thinking.
Length. Yeah. So for background, I had an extra Apple TV HD that I was not using. I had plugged up just to make sure it kept updates, but that was it. Like it was literally headless. And so I hooked it up to a TV, factory reset it and everything else, and then dropped it off to you to just take a look at and see. I know part of it was triggered by the YouTube TV, or let's rephrase, the Google versus Roku battle over YouTube TV. And part of it was also just me saying, you know what, I would rather it have some life than sit in the floor because I have another Apple TV coming and I'm about to put another Apple TV HD in the floor. So I guess at this point, that's the background information is there. Why don't you just share your thoughts?
So this Apple TV, I put it in my bedroom because that's most of it. Like I watch movies in the living room with my kids on the weekends when they're here. So most of the TV watching I do is in my bedroom. And so I put it in there because I wanted to be able to use it. And it's replacing a Roku 3 that is 9 or 10 years old. I got it either 2011 or 2012. I can't remember. And it's been a workhorse. Like I'm impressed with how well it's done. It's been kept up to date. It runs everything I've put on it. I was kind of afraid that it wasn't going to run Apple TV Plus, but it is the oldest Roku hardware that will run Apple TV Plus. And I had some problems with it initially, and I think we talked about that on the podcast, but they were resolved. And it just, it wasn't broken. I just thought, with this, is it Google or Alphabet that's, fighting Roku? Whatever.
Yeah,
The
I at this point I don't know what exists as a corporation anymore. I know Alphabet supposedly exists and owns like pretty much everything, but Google is always what gets the headlines. So
that's
in
because
my
we know
mind,
it
it's
is.
still Google.
I mean, it doesn't matter because it doesn't matter if it's technically Alphabet. It's still Google because that's how we know it. They just restructured it for whatever reason. Anyway, so I put the Apple TV in, and it was in the Apple TV Plus app for the first day that I was using it. Like I couldn't get out of it. I couldn't find the App Store to download apps. When I went to, because it's synced with my Apple ID, I wanted to watch a show that's on Hulu, and I was able to download the the Hulu app inside of the Apple TV app or Watch Now. I call it the Apple TV app because on the Roku, it's the same interface that the Apple TV Plus app has. So that's why I'm calling it that. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I was stuck in that for the first 24 hours. And I was able to watch, pick up, because it shows, the way the Apple TV works, it will tell you, like, pick up this show, in the Watch Now section. And so I'm like trying to navigate how to add an app and get to like an interface that I'm accustomed to seeing, so I could just like pick this app, pick that app to watch shows from. And I finally figured it out after pushing all the buttons multiple times, and figured out how to toggle back and forth between the Watch Now and the actual, I guess, what I would call the main interface of the app. And once I sorted that out, I was like, okay, that makes sense to me. It's like if I want to use the Watch Now features, I can go here and watch it. I can push this button if I want to, use it I would say the default way before I'm assuming, because that is the look of the app, of the interface before. I'm assuming Watch Now came after the application like grid. So, is that right?
Yeah, I'm struggling a little bit because I don't spend that much time in the Apple TV app. But then again, my experience with the Apple TV started with the old aluminum one that looked like a Mac Mini that you had to actually sync content to. And so I've been through.
It was like an iPod for your TV.
Right. It literally leveraged Front Row as the interface, which most people probably won't know what that is either. But
I love Front Row.
So I've seen so many iterations that I was using the Apple TV interface when it was literally just the stock apps with no app store. And if you wanted to do anything special, you had to actually jailbreak your Apple TV to do something like sideload Plex. And so I spend most of my time at the app grid screen, and then I navigate and choose what I want to use, whether I'm using Plex or watching something via Apple TV or Disney Plus or whatever, very much from a home screen to app perspective, and not within the Apple TV app itself as a interface.
So that's what I wanted to do. Like I wanted to be at the grid. I would consider that the default view in the interface, and then choose the application I want to, stream video from, whether it be Plex or Disney Plus or Netflix. And so, but I couldn't find that for the first 24 hours, and it was there's a Watch Now interface, and it heavily promotes Apple TV Plus, but if you go far enough down in the interface there, you can see here, pick up where you left off watching this show on Hulu, or pick up where you left off watching this show on. I don't think they actually have Netflix on there, because I think there's some bad blood between Netflix and Apple. So,
I mean, Netflix is an app that's available.
It is.
It's just not. I don't think it's featured in the Apple TV Watch Now space.
Right. So I'm just like, how are people using how are people using the Apple TV if this is the experience? Because I really didn't like the experience. And I finally figured out I can push the There's the not the menu. Yeah, the menu button is actually the back button. And then there's a button to the right of that that has a picture of like a TV screen. And if you're in the Watch Now interface, you push that TV screen button. It takes you to the grid where I want to be.
You know what? So this sparks a reminder. So they call it the TV button. And if you look in settings under remotes and devices, there's a section where you can tell the TV button what behavior it actually has, and you can toggle it between two different options. One option is to go to the home screen, and one option is to take you to the Apple TV app. I think the default is to take you to the Apple TV app, isn't it? Or is the default to take you to the home screen?
Right now, so I guess it depends. Like when I started up this Apple TV and got everything going, it was in the Apple TV app. And when I pushed the TV button, it would take me to the home screen. And if I push it again, it'll take me back to the Apple TV app.
Yeah, I think it's been a long time since I've messed with that. I think the default behavior is the Apple TV app. And I've actually changed it on mine to be the home screen because I don't really care about using the TV app to drive my interactions. So if you are, the easy way to check it is choose any other app, launch it, and then press the TV button. If it takes you to the home screen, then it is set the way I have mine set. If it takes you to the TV app, then it is the other setting, which is not the one that I would recommend using, but I think that's the default.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's what it does for me. It takes me to the Apple TV app, which was like annoying. And it's annoying that the menu button is not called the back button because it just takes you back. It doesn't take you to a menu.
Yeah, both things that are holdovers. So that behavior actually changed with an iteration of tvOS, and I don't remember which one, and I'm not going to go look it up. But at some point, the TV button default behavior changed from taking you to the home screen to taking you to the TV app. And
probably after they came out with the TV app.
Probably. I mean, it would have to be, right?
But I mean, right when I'm saying, sorry, I mean,
yeah,
when the TV app.
I know what you meant.
That's what changed, yeah.
Yeah. But that behavior was not what I wanted because it's not how I used my device. But I can understand if you're trying to gear a new user toward using the TV app as the centralized way to manage everything you're watching because it can integrate with the third parties as far as pulling up, Amazon Prime Video or Hulu or whatever. It does make some sense. It's just not executed perfectly. And I'm not the type of person that I want an app to control that for me because I may have access to the same show in 3 different places, but I know where I want to watch it. I would rather launch that app and watch it via that app or via Plex because there is no Plex integration with the Apple TV Plus app. And so a significant amount of what I watch is not available to continue from the Apple TV app anyway. I have to manually launch the Plex app for that. And so my use case has always dictated that I just assumed I would go back to the quote-unquote home screen and then navigate to what I want. And so I've maintained that behavior over time, but I do remember there being a release where that behavior changed.
Yep, that makes sense. So I'm going to tell you, keep talking about the things that I don't like about it. So once I figured out how to get to the grid of applications and download apps, I was like, okay, much better. Now I'm like, okay, this is what I was expecting. This is where I want to be. So I got all the apps downloaded, set up, and taken care of, and took a few minutes. It's really nice. So coming from a Roku, it's really nice to be able to be prompted on my phone to type in passwords. I like that quite a lot. And since the passwords are saved in iCloud Keychain, even nicer. So that's that bit of integration. Excellent.
As a quick aside, it's not just iCloud Keychain that will be prompted. Like if you do use 1Password or InPass or one of the other ones that have the
right.
I guess it's an extension.
It's just like iOS. It's at that point you're in iOS. You're on your iPhone, and so it doesn't matter where you have your phone, your passwords. You can pull it up.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify it because
important.
It is a very big deal for someone like me who leverages both 1Password and iCloud Keychain.
So once I figured out the interface and how to use the interface the way I wanted to use it, I started liking it a lot. I guess I'll keep talking about some good things. And the next good thing was something I didn't expect. I didn't have to tell the remote what to do I didn't have to tell it how to adjust the volume of my television. I didn't do anything. It just, I pushed the plus and the minus and it adjusted the volume of my television. And how I knew to do that is the second or third day I was using it, sometime I happened to push a button on the remote before I turned my television on, and the Apple TV turned on my TV. I didn't tell it to, I didn't tell it what kind of TV there was no you need to learn what kind of TV I have. It just did it. And I've messed around with different versions of this. I know it. So for the volume, I know it's using IR because if I cover up the IR transmitter, it won't work. So it's not something through the DVI cable. And I don't know what it's doing for powering on the TV. So what I found is that if I turn my TV off, the Apple TV will not turn it back on until the Apple TV goes to sleep. But once the Apple TV goes to sleep and I wake up the Apple TV, it will turn on my television. And that was really cool. I was not expecting that. And there was no learning. It just did it.
These are the things that HDCP promises that work sometimes, and in my case, horrifically fail on a daily basis anymore.
I was assuming that's what it was, but I guess my TV is so old that it was, I don't know. So yeah, it worked. I mean, it works great. It's a nice feature and it's nice. I didn't know, because I often use if I'm at home alone going to bed, sometimes I'll find a YouTube sound like a nature sound and put it on and fall asleep to that and have the sleep timer on my TV turn the TV off so that it doesn't wake me up at 3 a.m. And I wasn't sure how that was going to affect it, but I tested things out, like turn the TV off. As soon as the Apple TV goes to sleep, it'll wake it up and turn it on. And that was a great feature.
So one of the differences in scenarios, because of the HomeKit integrations that I actually have my Apple TVs set not to ever go to sleep. And I'm not surprised that as a result, it won't wake the TV because I don't expect it to. My big thing is just quit forgetting the damn volume settings. Every time I go to either TV, I have to reset the volume settings. It'll control it. I just have to go set it again. And it's annoying as hell. And it only became a pretty much daily occurrence after I set up there's a setting where if you have multiple Apple TVs, you can have it synchronize the home screens via iCloud.
Oh, that's cool.
And I'm pretty sure it synchronizes some settings too, even though that was not an advertised feature. But I do want to keep the home screens in sync. I would rather just press a volume button, and if it doesn't work, it prompts me that I haven't set it up, and I just select it real quick and go through it, than to have to manually manage the home screens independently again. I'm hoping that with the new Apple TV, and I have two Apple TV 4Ks in place instead of an Apple TV 4K and an Apple TV HD, maybe there is some disparity between the two devices that resolves itself once I rotate stuff around. It's a long shot. There's no reason why that should be the case, but I'm hoping that that eases that friction point, because that's really my only complaint. Now, on top of that, I will say that in one room, I'm using the hack of AirPlay to a stereo pair of HomePods versus direct output to a receiver and multiple speakers. So it wouldn't surprise me if it's something in that use case as well that just gets kind of garbled between the two, because I can't imagine that being the most common thing in a house where you would have two completely different setups like that. But,
it should be supported.
If all you got to do is bring the setting that you had with the original HomePod in a pair to tell a default output to the HomePod Minis, and you probably solve that. Like, come on, Apple, just update the software.
Maybe the chip they have inside doesn't have enough power.
Yeah, I am absolutely certain it is 100% software.
No, I know. I'm being sarcastic here.
I know, but it's one of those things where, come on, you discontinue the HomePod. There's no reason to differentiate. Just give me that damn feature.
I agree. So I don't like this remote, and
I'm not the least bit surprised.
Like when I first started using it, I was like, oh, this is not so bad. It's not the best. I still feel like John Syracuse is being hyperbolic about it, but I experienced all of this trouble that everyone has ever said, this is the trouble I'm having with this remote, and it is the worst remote I've ever used. I can't think of a worse remote. One of the best remotes I ever used was a Zenith TV remote from the 80s. It was this is how old it was. You would push in a button, or so if you want to change the channel, you want to go from, let's say on channel 2 and you want to go to channel 13, you push 1, 3, and then you have to push the enter button to actually send the signal. That was a better remote than the Siri remote.
Yeah, I know I talked a little bit about it when we were talking about the Apple event. Like this remote has served me well enough for what it attempts to do. That doesn't mean that I think it's a good remote. I do think it's an absolutely horrible remote. But I haven't really had that many frustrating moments with it either. There have been some, and so that alone makes it the worst remote I've used. I'm not wanting to defend it. I'm just wanting to make sure I point out that although it's the worst remote that I've ever used, it has served its purpose for me relatively well.
I think this will serve its purpose for me too. It's like at this point, I'm not interested in paying $60 for another remote. But I do wish it wasn't. I wish, I do confuse top and bottom fairly often, because they made the infrared transmitter window the exact same shape and size as the lightning connector on the other side. I'm just like, this is where symmetry is failing us. But it does feel like it was designed to force you to try to use Siri, because the Siri button is the only button that feels different as soon as you touch it, because it is concave, more so than, or it's concave and the other buttons are flat. Obviously, the plus and the minus is a rocker, or you could probably define it as a rocker. It looks like a rocker. So that seems likely to me, and also using the Apple TV in this remote is the best Siri experience I've ever had. I've only used it 2 or 3 times, but it's so far, it's a low bar, but it's the best Siri experience I've ever had.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever mentioned it on the show, but the TV is the one place where I feel like I can use Siri and it get what I'm saying more accurately than not. There are issues. The primary issues that I encounter are using dictation within the search for YouTube. And so I don't know if that is more a Siri issue or a translation to YouTube search or what. Because if I use it outside of that, I don't think I've ever had a problem. It's just there that I've experienced issues with it picking the wrong thing or translating it to something different. But it's also probably my most common use case scenario. So how much of that is an issue, specific to either the app or Siri, and how much of it is just that I'm more likely to encounter a problem there because that's where I use it most often. And then, of course, on that, with the HomePods have still been the most consistently accurate use cases for Siri so far for me.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm kind of interested in using Siri more on this, but yeah. Overall, I give the Apple TV thumbs up. It's a good little puck that you plug into your TV.
Yeah, it's certainly overpriced compared to the competition. That's a huge knock against it, in my opinion. But it integrates well when you have a mostly or all Apple general use case to a point where it kind of makes up for it in a lot of ways. So, it's a mixed bag.
Excuse me. It helps me to understand why people want an Apple television. It was before, it was I get why people want an Apple television, but now I get, it's if you know, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. The experience is definitely better than what I've used on other devices, even if something like the remote for interacting with that experience is not.
Yeah. But I think it looks like they've solved, I'm not going to say, I think that if the Siri Gen 2 remote was the first remote that ever came out, I think the very first Apple TV probably came with a white remote.
It did.
Oh, wow. Ooh, wow. Actually, I love that remote when all of the Macs had IR receivers, because it was great for presentations. It was such a cool little clicker for presentations. And I was really disappointed when the IR receivers started going away.
Well, even the successor to that remote, the aluminum body that still encapsulated the same general button functionality, was a pretty good remote in general. There were no real frills, but it served its purpose quite well.
It was like a pack of gum. It was so small. I did get to use that remote in the Apple Store while working there. It wasn't bad. It wasn't remarkable. And I think they've gone back to maybe not remarkable, but a little more functionality than that either the white or the I imagine having a wheel that you can just or a sensor wheel that you can scroll through endlessly. I think that's gonna it's gonna be make you nostalgic for the iPod, but also be what you should have had from the beginning.
Yeah, when mine finally get here, I will report back for sure.
Cool.
Because I ordered a new Apple TV to put in the living room. That way I can move my current Apple TV 4K into the office / workout room. And then I ordered a second remote to pair with that one, so that I'm using the same remote experience between the two rooms.
Totally. That was all I had to say about the Apple TV.
Nice. So
yeah.
I think we should take a quick break before we delve into the next topic, because I want to pour a drink, because I don't know how long or short this topic's going to go.
For me, it's actually kind of short, but at this point, it's oh, we're only this far in. I was I bet it'll go the full length of time that we normally go.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those things that I could see it being really short, but I could also see us talking a lot about certain aspects. Mm-hmm. So I figure a clean break real quick for an intermission, and then resume, and let's see where it goes.
Yep, sounds good.
All right. Well, I'll be right back then.
I am back if you're back.
I am. I hear furious typing.
I wouldn't call it furious.
If I hear any typing over a mic, it's furious. It doesn't matter whether it's light or not.
What's funny is like I don't hear it at all because of my headphones. So the second topic for the night was going to be about the show. So this is a meta topic.
And just to give some background, I think we both have alluded to it. I know I have specifically mentioned that we were talking about trying to be more focused and or figuring out the direction that we want to move the show going forward. So I think it's worth mentioning at a high level that both of us have kind of played with some ideas on what started as just recording a conversation for the sake of recording a conversation and turning it into a podcast has for both of us become something where we'd like to have some level of focus to say, hey, listen to us because, and what is that because? And so that's
a great way to summarize it.
Right. And so that's really what we wanted to talk about. And we actually wanted to talk about it not on the podcast, and then that didn't happen because, well, no surprise. We decided to drink and chat about other things instead. And so why not make it a topic on the show, even if it seems kind of strange to be that meta when it comes to recording an episode where you're talking about what you're going to potentially do with future episodes.
I think based on how the show has been going so far, it's fine for us to talk about this. And maybe if we change the format of the show or change our focus or change, maybe just like, we could call it coming out with the 2.0 version of the show. Maybe this kind of conversation wouldn't happen in the show. So,
and then just to add to that, I think it's also good that we assume we have some level of audience, and we know that at least a couple of people listen. It may be more than that. It may not. It may be limited to those couple. But talking about it here and kind of exploring those thoughts does allow the potential for feedback, which so far the only feedback that's hit any of the accounts has been spam. So this is yet again, I mentioned that this is the ideal opportunity to provide feedback if you want to.
Feedback is a gift.
You could be at a point where you influence the direction of the show.
Yeah.
A founder, if you will.
Yeah. I was just, okay. So I guess the two thoughts, the last, I'd been thinking about this for a while and the thoughts I had were really clear, but I was not, we started talking about this at the same time with each other, and I really wasn't able to articulate my thoughts, even though they were clear in my head. And so I was just like, I don't need to overcomplicate what I want to articulate and just say that my personal thoughts were having shows each episode be more focused on a particular topic. Because, we might have a show, like in this particular show, we talk about the Apple TV and we talk about the show. And those are two very different topics. And so, if there was a night where we wanted to talk about two very different topics, that could be two shows. That could, we spent one night of recording to get the output of two shows, just as a matter of keeping what is contained in what we call, this is episode 36, and it's going to be about the Apple TV. Whereas, follow-up is always going to be here, there, and everywhere because it's sort of a catch-all. Follow-up is allowed to be various topics because we're going back and referencing something previous that we want to address. So it's the follow-up section, the follow-up section would be allowed to be very differing topics, whereas like the meat of the show or what we would call topics in the show would be focused on related things. So like we had a show on the Apple event. We talked about a lot of different things, but they were all pertaining to the Apple event. So that was my general idea. And from that, I was thinking show length might shorten. And that way, for who I'm calling regular people, seeing the length of our podcast might not be so daunting. So that was all that was what was in my head, and I've articulated it, and now we can talk about it.
Yeah, so my thoughts have been scattered more on the overarching themes of the show than each individual episode. One of the things that I like is having a narrative around, if you want to hear about X or X, Y, and Z, whatever that subset of items are, here's a show that talks about those things. It may not be the same thing each week, but it's at least within the vein of that space. And trying to focus more on a unifying theme from episode to episode than the meat of the episode itself. Because I do agree, we could very easily record a couple of episodes a night some nights and have a 1 or 2 episode backlog that could be released pretty easily, I think. But what I really want to answer or focus in on is, what do we actually want to provide the audience? Is it just an escape and listening to a conversation? Is it a more tech-focused and general discussion, just because that's the general realm of knowledge that we possess? Is it exploring social topics, or psychological topics, philosophical topics, you name it? Is it more, this is just an hour to escape reality and listen to whatever random topic we pick for the week? Whatever that tying in theme is, I would like to narrow in on that a little bit and make sure that whatever topics we have for a show fit into that theme as well.
Yeah.
And I don't have a good answer for that one at all, because I have so many varied interests that it's tough to subdivide them. And I don't want to be restrictive by any means. If we have a random show that we want to talk about 1850s, yeast production for whatever it may be, right? Right. We certainly have that flexibility, but as a whole, what do we want the show to kind of be focused around as a unifying theme? And that's been where I've been spending a lot of time trying to decide what my answer to that would be, and I just don't have one.
Right. So I didn't think about like an overarching theme to the episode to the entire podcast, because I felt like, I'm not sure, like, we can talk for hours and I'm entertained and you're entertained, and hopefully some other folks will be entertained. And like, I think like the driving factor for me was like, a few people have, said, hey, go, listen to my podcast. And because there, like, something came up in conversations like, oh, I talked about this at length on a podcast. They go look at the podcast and like, that's over 2 hours long. And it's like, and like, that made me feel bad, because I'm like, yeah, that's the, I remember my friend telling me, it's like, check out this podcast. Right now it's blowing up because of the pandemic. It's This Week in Virology. It's been a great source of information because it's virology. It's a panel of virologists speaking for 2 hours, and a lot of what they're talking about is SARS-CoV-2, because that's that's what's going on in virology right now. And they talk like regular people. Like sometimes they get into the weeds because you can't not, but they do a really good job of talking to somebody like me who doesn't know, much about virology. And so I remember my friend telling me, he's like, it's kind of a long podcast. It's about 2 hours every week. And I'm like, oh, isn't that like, my thought was like, isn't that the normal length of podcast? Because I listen to podcasts that are 2 hours long. The talk show, ATP. I think Reconcilable Differences might not be that long, but I listen to long podcasts. And, the ones that I listen to the most, they're on the regular 2 hours. So... And then I didn't think about like that we could actually, I wasn't thinking that there was like an overarching theme, like this is a technology podcast or a social and, living society pod. I couldn't think that because I didn't think about like an overarching theme because I felt like we just talk about a lot of different things where it might be about Apple. It might be about a social issue. It might be about a different kind of technology. It might be about travel bags. And it might be about why there's a mismatch of vice presidents and presidents. And we covered the mismatch of vice presidents and presidents in one episode. And so that couldn't be a theme. By the way, that's episode 21 if you want to listen to
that. Nice plug.
Yeah. So it didn't really occur to me to do an overarching theme, but I thought more like episode focus and I feel like it means that like I want to like get my thoughts down a little bit more clearly because there's like some episodes where I felt like it was very focused, but we went from topic to topic. Like we covered multiple topics in an episode, and then we end up with an episode that could actually probably be like 2 episodes or 3 episodes of the show. And so that's kind of like I feel like there's not, it's like who the hell is Casey? Who the hell are John and Jesse? And why should I listen to their podcast? Well, I feel like maybe we're just interesting enough that some people, but like there's nothing to like draw people in. And I think there's more like the length of I feel like the length of the episode is like what is the thing that makes it hard for people to listen to.
I get that. I think I was using the incorrect terminology a bit as well because it's not so much an overarching theme, even though that's where my thoughts have kind of been. It's taking a step back and looking at the tagline. Have we done a good job from a branding perspective of this is what it means to listen to the show? And I think if you take the entire back catalog of shows, it probably matches up fairly well. But in the scope of a show, you wouldn't be able to listen to 1 episode or 2 episodes and get a sense of what that means. And I do think the more focused decisions around topics would help that. But I think the missing piece in my mind is that there still needs to be a tie-in to pick any episode and you feel like it's a continuous, or not continuous, you feel like
cohesive.
It's a portion, cohesive show within the grand scheme of what it means to be an episode of the Untitled podcast. Because a single theme is never going to be something that we're going to settle on and talk about. There's just no way. We're far too diverse, have far too many interests that are diverse enough that it's not going to be that cohesive if you pick 3 themes, right?
Right.
And so themes aren't really the thing that I'm thinking is missing. It's that cohesiveness from pick an episode and then pick another episode. Oh yeah, this is definitely the same show and this is why.
I think about the podcast that Renee Ritchie was producing in the 2012, 13, 14, up to 15. I think 15 is when it tapered off. But, you know, he was writing for iMore and producing a lot of different content, podcast content. There was Debug, there was Vector, there's a TV show. He had a couple of shows with Don Melton, and like they all could have been in one feed, but they had enough content that they made several different shows. There was I think Debug might have been every other week, like twice a month, and those were long podcasts. Those were all over 2 hours, but there was a lot to cover. And so even though they were different podcasts, for me it was all the same because there was one person tying them together. Different than Dan Benjamin with his shows on 5x5, but because there's a lot of overlap. Because, you know, like with Dan, like the 5x5 shows that Dan Benjamin did, you know, you have like Hypercritical, and it was Dan Benjamin and Marco. And it was Dan Benjamin and Syracuse on Hypercritical. And I can't remember, there was another one. It was the Big Web Show, but I can't remember who it was that was on there. But it was him and Dan Benjamin. Anyway, whereas like the shows that Renee Ritchie was producing, he was on Vector with Georgia Dow, and sometimes it would have you'd have Guy English on there. Debug was Renee Ritchie, Guy English, and whatever guest they had. And there was one where they review where they would either review movies or TV shows, but like sometimes like the guest, like I remember various times the guest on Debug was Don Melton, and then on the review show it was Guy English and like Dan Wiskus and another sometimes Dan Morin would be on there, and I can't remember if I said Don Melton, but so it was like, even though there was all these different shows, the shows followed particular topics. The host and the guest intermingled a lot, so there's a lot of overlap with the guest, and so it made it feel like it could all be one thing with just a lot of content. But because they had so much content, they can make all these different shows, whereas we don't have as much content as they have. And so we could have the kind of like, well, this episode's going to be about this, and then that episode's going to be about that. But you know it's going to be us talking about these things or something.
Yeah, I think kind of as you were talking, I think there are two things to maybe try from a formatting perspective and see if that makes it feel more like it fits both scenarios in general. Scenarios being what you're focused in on within the episode and what I'm focused in on encompassing the episodes. I think if we just offline figure out a show format, and we can do that pretty easily, I think, with some shared notes and saying this, you know, will consistently be what we try to do, and just keep the conversation within each topic confined to that topic, and not as meandering and back and forth to the topic, then it's pretty easy to drop in a post-production aspect, a quick little soundbite that transitions topic to topic. And then it could be either one long show that maybe goes every other week, like the talk show, yes, or being able to edit it into a couple of smaller shows. And if we still want to consistently record on a weekly basis, we maybe could even drop 2 shows a week, you know, a couple of different days, or start accumulating a backlog for occasionally having a week where we were not able to record, like, you know, a couple of weeks ago. I think there are a few ways that we can approach that and make it feel like it fits what we're looking for. Because I don't think what I'm looking for is different from what we're doing, but it doesn't feel like we're meeting what I'm looking for, even though what we're doing fits it. I think that part of that is that structure.
Yeah.
Because realistically, if we didn't have the random kind of meandering conversations and we actually had each segment contained, it's exactly what I'm looking for.
Right.
And it feels more like a cohesive presentation of the show rather than this is just two guys, recording a random conversation.
Exactly. And that's kind of what I want to move towards, more structure and less of a meandering conversation. Even I enjoy the meandering conversation, but I think a more structured topic to topic show would be easier to pass along, or easier to recommend, and that recommendation be easy to accept.
Well, and it also, so I've had some other thoughts, with Apple announcing the podcaster program and starting to kind of consider different things. It would make it easier to have an episode that was one or two topics that were focused, end the episode, have an after show that is more meandering conversation, and maybe the after show is a member perk. So we'd record the show, end it, all of that stays 100% publicly available for free. If you want the extra after show for those episodes where there is after show and it's a meandering conversation, maybe that's a perk.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say the other thing, I just added a topic, or a sub point, and that was that I'm interested in this. I only know one show that does this, and I'm sort of interested in this follow-up feature where you have inline follow-up. So I mentioned on a previous show that the is it Real Friends, Fake Doctors? I think that's what it is. It's the one about it's the Scrubs Rewatch podcast.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah.
I still haven't listened to it, but I am subscribed to it.
I love their inline follow up that they do now. It's such cool instant gratification, where you don't have to wait week for the next episode to get an answer to something. And I thought, I would take that upon my behalf to. So since you're editing and we were to add this feature, it would be my responsibility to know where in the timeline this follow up needs to go. And I would go do the follow-up, record the follow-up, and then send that send that sound file to you and be like, this needs to go here for inline follow-up. I think that would be a cool feature. I know I don't know that it would be a lot more work for you if I do all of if I were to say in the combined recording at this timestamp, this needs to go here. And then you'd have inline follow-up that is automatically a part of the show. I think that would be kind of cool.
Yeah, that wouldn't be very difficult to pull off. The timestamp wouldn't be completely accurate by the time that I strip silence and kind of compress those moments where we pause, but it would be close enough to get me in the realm of where I need to be. So when I edit the show, we might lose 5 or 10 minutes over the entire course of the recording where I compress some stuff. I try to be very light when it comes to removing aspects of speech patterns, because to me, part of how you get personality across is to retain as much of that as possible. So the only time I cut them is when it's either a prolonged period of silence, or if it's obvious that there's a kind of struggling with a word, then maybe I'll clip, that little section out. But I try to leave as much of that as I can. I try to just do a compression of the pause between when one of us stops and the next person starts, instead of modifying anything about a person's stretch of speech. So if you pause while you speak, or if you do like I'm doing now, where you take a moment and say, and then go into something, I try to leave all of that, because
right. I've noticed that.
And so I don't think it would be difficult at all to do that. I think the biggest thing would be trying to target, if we're going to do that, where in the week is the editing cycle versus when I have it all ready to go and I don't have to worry about the show again for a couple of days, that kind of thing. And that's just a purely logistical problem. Like that's nothing that would be difficult to solve. It's just some coordination.
Yeah, and for me, it'd be like something where I'd want to get that stuff to you as soon as possible, so that it's there when you need it, and you get to control when it goes in.
And realistically, at this point, I've learned enough about producing the show that if we have a 2-hour show, it takes me about 2 hours to edit. It's not that difficult at all. And the only reason it takes me that long is because I do a quick pass to remove silence and kind of compress some stuff. And then I don't listen to the whole show. I kind of remember what we talked about and move forward to do my chapter markers and that kind of stuff on a second pass through. And that's the piece that takes more time, because a lot of times I'll listen to something and then say, well, that could be another marker, or maybe I don't want to do a marker here, playing with that just because I can. But that's what takes the most time. The initial pass really isn't that difficult anymore, unless we have some odd ups and downs on volume for recording, which takes more time to edit. But even then, worst case scenario, if I have to pay more attention and do some tweaks, on average, again, 2-hour show, I might spend 4 to 5 hours in post and get it edited and ready to go. So I don't view that as an overly heavy lift to add, 20 minutes to interject some clips. That's minimal in the overall scheme of things.
And if we focus our topics, or we get more intentional with our topics and focusing them in particular segments, that might make the editing go easier as well.
Oh, for sure, because then I would know, all right, at this point I can just start this topic, and then I know that I'm listening for this key phrase or something to transition to the next topic. So I guess that the only thing that really leaves is show length, and I think that ties into recording frequency pretty well. We could very easily focus the topics better and still record a 2-hour episode, but do we think that the whole 2-hour episode piece is just too daunting?
I definitely think the 2-hour episode piece is too daunting. Everybody who doesn't listen to podcasts, or I would say I've been calling them regular people, but really what I mean is a casual podcast listener, or a non-podcast listener has definitely found the 2-hour timestamp daunting. It was almost a non-starter,
So what and what this leads to is, or what I'm setting up is just, what do we want to try to target as the show length? And I emphasize that because I do specifically say the show is the topic, and then whatever we record for an after show could make it 12 hours for all we care.
Right.
The after show is not the show. Right. You can listen from the beginning to the end of the show and skip the after show. What is that length?
So the problem with if the after show is part of in part of that podcast download, it affects the timestamp. So
yeah, but I can very easily, even if we don't do the member perk route, even if we just do the after show as the after show, I can
drop it
2
as a different
separate
episode.
recordings on the same day. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's probably a good thing, because I feel like the target should be under 60 minutes, 59 minutes. Because if you see, I think there's something psychological. Once you see an hour, that's long. But if you saw 59 minutes, it's not an hour. And so That was my initial thought for a target.
Yeah, I will say that lines up with kind of what I was thinking we should target as the focus of the show, unless we went to a bi-weekly schedule. And so the question is, do we want to go bi-weekly and maybe do an hour and a half for a show, or do we want to target the show, continue weekly, and then just have a separate post for the after show?
And I'll want, like, my initial feelings on it are to continue doing a weekly show, get it under an hour, have the after show be a separate, same day drops, after show for, so like, show 36 comes out, then I don't know if you do like 36B and it's the after show, or 36A after show. I'm not sure how that is going to show up, but have the after show drop, and it's an extra if you want it.
So I kind of think it's clean.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of think it's a clean point to go ahead and say, after this episode, we'll target an hour. We'll see how that's received. And then in the intervening time frame, I figure out whether it's worth it to pursue like the podcasters program and drop the after show there, or maybe do something homegrown with a separate RSS feed that you can access that gives you the show plus after show. But basically give, a couple of weeks to try to nail down the hour time frame and the focus on the topics. Maybe it takes us 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever. Like let's get that piece down first.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we have that format down and are consistent about it, then I will be ready to add in an after show feed and figure out whether it's a like member perk or just a separate feed or what. Like that gives me a little bit of time to explore that in more detail.
I like that. I think that's, we don't have to like reinvent everything all at once. We can
let's figure out how we can rein ourselves into an hour of discussion first.
That's actually a big thing to do. That's a big change from what we have been doing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we spent 20 minutes on follow-up and we didn't have that much follow-up.
And maybe inline follow-up makes that, go a little bit faster. I'm really down with this inline follow-up.
I have no qualms with that whatsoever. The other thing that maybe becomes a difference in structure is that each show is just the topics, and then follow-up and after show become a combined thing if you want them. So there are a couple of ways to look at that might be worth exploring further. Because realistically, like if you think about the podcasts that we listen to, I only know of one show that does follow-up that I listen to.
Yeah.
So we can and it's the same show that has an after show typically.
But there's a lot of shows that have an after show. Like 5x5 was the first place where I heard about, first noticed the after show. And they even have an after show feed where you have a feed, an RSS feed where you can download all the after shows for all the shows. So you don't have to, there's a way to download all the after shows. So it's interesting. That was years ago when that feed was out. I don't know if it's still available.
So I would say a good first step is let's take the next couple of weeks to just it's a show, and it's an hour. It's targeted an hour or less, and we'll do 2 episodes like that and just kind of see how well we can stick to that format. And then that should put us in a position where we can figure out the appropriate way to do follow-up, whether it's real time or as a separate component or what, plus after show.
Yep.
I think that's a good takeaway.
I think that's a great first step. I like it.
And then maybe we'll get some feedback from the couple of people that I know listen saying that, yes, it's better, or, you know what, I like the 2-hour episodes, bring it back.
So And if we get no feedback, it might be because they stopped listening to us already.
Yeah, I'm just going to assume we have no listeners. Like, literally, I don't do this for the listeners. I would love to suddenly have a indicator that there are people paying attention. But you know what? I'm going to continue to assume nobody listens until some company reaches out and says, you know what? I would like you to do an ad read. At that point, I'm going to assume we have listeners.
Oh, my God. Yeah, I was just going to say, for me, it's like I've always been a consumer of podcasts, and it's really nice to be a creator and to have these things to think about. And so it feels good to, even if nobody ever listens to it, it feels good to be creating something.
Oh, absolutely. I know we've talked about a number of different kind of random things off to the side where over the past year there have been a lot of kind of creative itches that I've had and some things that I've explored and a couple of things that we need to follow up on that we haven't done so. That this definitely provides an outlet for that I can enjoy, even if it never does anything but provide me that outlet.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's how this show started. We wanted to talk about stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. And I've learned a hell of a lot about audio production since then, and I still don't know shit about it. So,
yeah. Like, I bought a kick-ass app called Audio Hijack. And you know what? I discovered some features about notes that I didn't know, and it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun to talk, like just explore certain things that in a way that I wouldn't have necessarily explored. And it's fun to put on a show, produce a show, and discuss things with the expectation that it's not just a conversation, it's a conversation that we've allowed anyone to access. Because that does change the conversation, does have an effect on the dynamic of the conversation, and that's been fun.
It has. And it's also led over the past week or so, I've been researching different ways to record in-person audio without like cross-feed and everything else to be able to do... I'm not going to call it a live show because we don't have an audience, but an in-person multiple group like panel type recording.
A booth show.
That would actually be easy to edit and not each microphone is picking up crosstalk from other people nearby and that kind of thing. Because I feel like that's something that would be fun to do as well. And we have at least one other person, if not a couple, that would love to do so. And if nothing else, I'm going to learn more about how to facilitate that, and it's going to feed some other projects that I potentially have as well. So all in all, it's been great learning up to this point. I just want to take it a step further.
I like that. I like the idea of doing that. I've thought about that. So,
and then another step further, and another step further. Like eventually, this will make at least $5. Like that's my target. Well, $5 a year.
So I think that instead of like saying we're gonna like rebrand and do version 2.0, it's just like it's a thing that's gonna evolve, and there might be some big steps forward and some small steps forward. So I think that that's it's gonna grow organically.
Yeah, well, it's 100% the reason I didn't label seasons as far as the podcast feed. Because I don't want it to be seen as a seasonal, episodic type thing. I do want it to be right. It's a continuation. It will get better, and it will change, and it will evolve for sure. And hopefully, what we arrive at eventually, wherever that point may be, is a show that you can say, you know what, listen to these guys for these reasons. Or this is a good show to listen to for these reasons.
Check out this episode because we talk about that.
Right. And it's just a continuation from episode 1 to episode, 9,000. We'll just put a benchmark out there.
You can go up to 9,099 with the way you've labeled the episode numbers and notes.
That was intentional as well.
Yeah, I know. Should we pause here and do an after show and for the last 2-hour show?
Yeah, I think so. Like that certainly wraps up where we are currently. One thing I will do, just for the sake of trying to kind of remember, what the game plan is going forward, I'll create a new template for our show notes that kind of encompasses what we've talked about. I don't know exactly how I'm going to do it, but it'll be obvious once I figure it out. But I'll do that over the next day or so, and then we'll try that format going at least 2 weeks. If not, I'll target 2 to 4 weeks. Kind of figure out, how it feels and how it goes, and then we'll revisit it. Let's just say 4 weeks. 4 weeks of trying to target that hour mark of a show, and then we'll revisit it and see if we need to make some tweaks.
I like it.
All right. Well, that's a wrap for the show. We'll pause for a second and then move into after show. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at untitled_hosts. Send us an email at untitled.hosts@gmail.com or follow the feed directly at the untitledpodcast.com. You can also find all sorts of ways to contact Jesse at jthart.com. Thank you for listening. That's a wrap.
All right, what happened to your rower?
Man, I don't even... All right, so full disclosure, I bought a Nordic Track rower that was used. I bought it, I don't know, 3 years ago now? 4 years? I think 3 years. I have put a lot of miles on it. I have realized now I was supposed to be doing some basic maintenance over time. I haven't done shit to try to maintain it. And
you're supposed to do. I want to interject. You're supposed to do that with electric razors, and I haven't had a problem yet.
Yeah. So the current issue, the seat carriage assembly, there are 2 like roller wheels, one at the front, one at the back, and then 2 like sub wheels, I guess, that are on the opposite sides in the middle that keep it on track. And I had some of the ball bearings like dropping onto the floor while I was rowing a day and a half or so ago, 2 days ago, whatever. And just made me realize that I should have been oiling the rower and making sure I was paying attention to it and blah, blah, blah. I didn't know that. This is the first rowing machine that I've ever owned. It's very cheap to replace those parts. I have also decided, though, I'm going to sell the current rower and purchase a different rower because I can. Because it's me.
Sure.
Like, why not? I could spend $40 to replace these parts, which I am doing. I have actually ordered those parts. They will be here sometime in the next 6 months because of how slow Icon/Nordic Track ships shit. And I have also ordered a new rowing machine that is using a water resistance assembly instead of the air/magnetic resistance that most rowers use.
Interesting.
Because I decided I wanted something different.
Interesting. My mind goes straight to the Mac Pro G5 that was water cooled.
So I actually spent a lot of time trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Because I knew I could order, $40 worth of parts and fix this one. I've already replaced the rowing, pulley cable assembly and the handle once, and that was like $80-something. And I've replaced the foot pads and, bits and pieces that it's not I can't. It's more that, all right, I've done all this maintenance. I have, a couple $100 in the machine buying it used versus $1,000 that I would buy it new. So I'm certainly not, it's not like I have overspent. I have gotten my money's worth for sure. But I started looking at, all right, do I enjoy rowing as an exercise? Or was it just something to do to get to the current point that I am? And my answer to that is I do enjoy rowing, but I want it to be a better experience. And so I started looking at, okay, do I just repair this one? Or do I repair this one and sell it for hopefully roughly what I have in it? Certainly less, but not, drastically less, because I did buy it used and dirt cheap in comparison. Or do I just continue to repair it over time and finally start doing some maintenance and everything else? And I decided I'd rather have a rower that I appreciated across the board for its design and aesthetics and sound and like just everything that goes into using that machine. So I ordered it's water resistant style rower. Water Rower is the company that originally designed that type of machine. They're based in somewhere in New England. I don't remember for sure which state, so I'm not going to say. But in the New England area. And, it's something else to try. I don't know if I'm going to like it better or worse, but it costs me, let's just say $1,500 to get into a brand new machine with a warranty versus a used machine that I bought for a couple hundred that I've consistently spent about $100 a year in replacement parts for over 3 years. And if that trend continues, I would rather just buy a new machine, sell the old one for what I can get out of it, and be at point zero again from a maintenance perspective and see where I am in 2 or 3 years. The biggest aspect of it, though, is I just want to appreciate the machine for its design. And I really think the Nordic Trek machines look like shit. They're very functional. They collapse well, but they look horrible. And I want something that I enjoy using and appreciate from a design perspective. And it's just not it.
I get that. I think there's, if you pay attention to aesthetic, then you can afford a certain aesthetic, then you get that thing that fits that aesthetic.
So the thing I like about the Water Rower machines, and I should clarify, Water Rower is not who I ordered from. They're just the manufacturer of the rower itself. But they're made from a combination of wood and, in some cases, aluminum for parts of the frame. They look more like pieces of art than fitness equipment. And I just like the thought of something that feels more like being on the water, since it does use water resistance to create that effect, and looks decent, because I have to look at this machine every single day anyway, because it's in a corner of the bedroom. I'd rather it look good and not be an eyesore, or not look like regular gym fitness equipment, just because I have to see it all the time. If I had a separate room that was specifically a home gym or home fitness room, it wouldn't bug me. But because I don't have that and it's in a corner of the bedroom, I just want it to look good.
It's a huge, there's I'm just looking the difference between the wooden water resistance rowers and the Nordic Trek rowing machine. I'm just like, yeah, the Nordic Trek fits, that looks like it should be in a gym. And the water rower looks like it, it could be your entertainment center. So I totally understand.
Yeah, I was going to order, so Concept 2 makes kind of the gold standard of rowing machines. It used to be the Model D. They've rebranded it the Ergata. It would be not quite half the price, certainly less expensive. I'd say about 2/3 of the price. And I was going to order one of those, but it looks worse than the Nordic Track. And I just couldn't bring myself to decide to order something that just looks that utilitarian.
No. If you had a at-home gym, yeah, that'd work, but in your bedroom.
Yeah, if I kept it in the garage or if I kept it in a separate room that I wasn't in all the time, sure, no problem. I could put weights in there and everything else, but
I get it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm at a point where I want it to be very functional and very aesthetically pleasing, and the water resistance style rowers just fit the bill better.
I agree.
So all that said, like
they're a lot prettier.
My rower is only out of commission because a $7 ball bearing joint roller thing, it's literally, I think $9 was the cost of the replacement part. It's a wheel that the ball bearings have started to fall out of, so the seat assembly no longer slides smoothly. Theoretically, I could still use it. I know better because using it in this current state, it's just going to scratch stuff up and be that much more, unusable. So I've ordered the parts to repair it. It cost me about $40 to repair it, including an astronomical amount of shipping because that's what happens with the fitness companies. And
bastards.
Well, I mean, it's 40. I think it was $47 for the parts, but that includes $14 for shipping. Like how can you ship something that small? Anyway, so I've ordered the parts because I don't really feel good selling it to somebody else without fixing it, since I know what's wrong and I know it's not that inexpensive. So I will sell it, and I will sell it for hopefully, I would say half of what I bought it for, if not a little bit more. We'll see. I don't know if I will. Maybe it'll just be a spare machine that goes in the garage for a while so that if I have a problem, I have something to pull it from. Who knows? But it is currently out of commission as of 2 days ago until either the new rower gets here or the parts get here, and I don't know which will happen first. And I guess for full disclosure, so there's a company called City Row that partnered with Water Rower for the hardware, but has a very specific app experience for their machines. So City Row is who I ordered the rower from.
Okay.
Not that it really matters, but it's nice to compare.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about like a conversation that you might be having with Emily regarding the fact that you have two rowers.
Yeah, let's just assume that conversation doesn't have to happen.
I know. That's what I'm amused by.
I actually haven't even mentioned that I ordered the new rower to her yet. So the world at large knows before I've mentioned to her that I've ordered a replacement rowing machine.
You can let her know. It's like, hey, it was in the podcast. If you listen to the podcast.
I am. Like there have been a number of times where I said, well, if you listen to the show, you would have known.
I know. I've done that too.
So what's this halt and catch fire?
Yeah, I put that in there because, are you familiar with the original use of halt and catch fire?
Based on the phrasing of the question, probably not.
Okay. I was not familiar with it either, but it's an old term. It was an assembly. It was something in assembly. It was some sort of machine code instruction that basically caused the computer to cease any meaningful operation and just tie it up. And I think I don't know if it's considered a bug or I'm not exactly sure. But you basically, if you ran some code, we call it HCF code or HCF instruction, it would cause the CPU to become unresponsive, and you'd have to restart the computer to get it functioning again. So HCF stood for Halt and Catch Fire. It is also the name of a TV series, and it's an AMC period piece, much like Mad Men was, and it's based on some folks, fictitious characters that, at least in the first season, they do the same thing like that Compaq did. They reverse engineered the BIOS of an IBM PC so that they can make an IBM clone. And so it sort of follows them and through various levels of the beginning of the personal computer revolution.
It seems interesting. You said AMC?
It's AMC, so it's very well done. It's not quite as good as Mad Men was, or Mad Men is, but it's pretty good. And so the first couple of seasons take place in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in the 80s. And by the end of the third season, they're in Silicon Valley, and it's the 90s. So it's pretty cool. They go from trying to make an IBM clone to the development of the World Wide Web, and it's a well produced show. It's so easy to keep comparing to Mad Men, because one of the things that was really cool to watch, or at least for me that I enjoyed watching Mad Men, was it gave me an idea of what my mom went through growing up, because she's the same age as I'm blanking on her name.
Yeah, I haven't watched it. I've watched a portion of the first season, and I enjoyed it, but we never really continued, so I'm just no help there.
Yeah, so Mad Men was kind of difficult because it's kind of difficult because there's not really any part of that show that's happy. And if I know some folks are easily, if that a show that's kind of that down or that melancholy might get to some folks. And so that show, I feel like no one's ever really happy in the show, but maybe nobody was really happy in the 60s, so I can see how that might be a turnoff. But Sally Draper, she was the daughter of Don Draper, the main character, and she's the same age as my mom. She's born in the mid 50s, into the she's one of the last baby boomers, and it her character is fairly prominent, and so it's sort of it was the first time I got to look and sort of see oh, these are these are the historical events that happened as my mom was growing up. I can't say my dad, because my dad was living in an underdeveloped nation, and so it was a different experience that he had. So whereas Halt and Catch Fire, that starts in the 80s, and it's oh, these are when the baby boomers are my age, and they're in their 30s, and they're parents, and it's the kids in the show are just a year or two older than me. They're they're about your age, and so that was fun to see. And then by the end of the show, it's really cool because it's the mid 90s, and it's I was a teenager at this point, and I remember all of this stuff. I remember, I really get the context. So it's a good show. I recommend it. The music's good.
So that is something that I will have to add to the list, but unfortunately it's one of those things that I probably will still be a couple of years out from watching based on current trends.
Well, I was going to say it's on Netflix, and my only criticism might be that I feel like the characters in the show would probably do one or maybe two of the significant things that the characters do. I'm not 100% sure, but it just feels like the only person I can think of that might have done something this many significant things might have been Steve Jobs. And like one of the characters is definitely a Steve Jobs type, maybe on a smaller scale. And I know that the actor studied a lot of Steve Jobs public presentations for his character. So it's not unheard of, or it's not like they were like trying to shy away from it, but that's kind of the vibe that there is there.
It's interesting. I guess it's not a direct correlation, but if you take a step back and look at general pop culture depictions of not even people, but concepts in general, it's pretty easy to pinpoint the influence Jobs had on a lot of characters in certain aspects that it's tough to notice it at the moment, but it's really easy to notice it being detached from, his life in general, right? So, a few years on, you go back and you look at something and it's pretty clear to see the influence of his charismatic approach to things being a kind of written into a character's role. I think that's a good way to say it. It sounded like a good way to say it, but I don't know if it really gives credence to how much influence Jobs actually had from a cultural level in the mindset or framing of an idea for most people versus those people who maybe followed Apple closer than others, right? Like how much of it is applicable to
regular
pop
people,
culture as a whole versus this subset of interests.
Yeah, so Steve Jobs is definitely the first CEO that became a household name, and it became a household name in the 80s. Like I really can't think of another CEO that whose name became so widely used, because that's typically not the role of CEOs, or not showmen like Jobs was. Elon Musk is like the next one, but he's kind of a poor man's Steve Jobs.
It's funny. I know you've got Disney Plus. There's a documentary on SpaceX that I don't remember if they call it SpaceX The Road to Mars, or it's something along those lines. It's approximately 46 minutes. It's done by National Geographic, who is owned by Disney. But it's actually a really good little documentary of surrounding the SpaceX program from origin to the Falcon Heavy. So it's outdated today based on other developments, but it's not that far outdated yet. But in that documentary, Elon is portrayed in a way that makes him more charismatic than he is if you follow him in general outside of that. And I don't want to sound like he's not charismatic at all, but he's more, what's even the right word? It's not that he's more charismatic. He's presented in a more charismatic light in that documentary than he is if you just follow his interactions with the world at large on a daily basis, or not daily, but on a current basis.
Well, it's I know Steve Jobs would put out what you might call a gaffe, but he just seems a bit more polished than Elon Musk. But
he was significantly more polished.
Okay,
he was very much a presentation, or a presenter's presenter. He was someone who could craft and give you a narrative and would make sure that it was the narrative he wanted to give you, regardless of whether it was staged, like in a keynote where there were plenty of hours going into refining that presentation, or if it was more off the cuff and maybe a bit more gruff as far as language or poignant kind of direction goes, but he still maintained that persona across the board.
Yeah.
Where Elon falls short is that he seems more uncomfortable in those off-the-cuff scenarios. Not that he can't do it, or not that he's not necessarily good at it, but there's a very different comfort level when he's in front of a crowd in those scenarios than Jobs. Jobs just seemed to feel at ease, whether he was in a crowd of 10 or 20,000. It's
right.
He had that same feeling and persona across the board.
Right. He was the same Steve Jobs on, demoing, the iPhone for the first time, as well as being on all things digital on stage with Walton Moss and that other guy, Bill Gates, in a big red chair. I mean, it was the same Steve.
Right.
Like it was a consistent portrayal from him.
And I actually can't think of any other, well, I was going to say just CEO, but like even expanding that to executive leadership that seems to feel that comfortable and at ease outside of Apple. Like literally the only other people that come to mind are Phil Schiller and Craig Federighi. Yeah.
I mean, Steve Jobs was a once in a lifetime, maybe even a few lifetimes kind of person. It's definitely a once in a generation mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing that I had, I was going to just mention, and it's very briefly, and it's I watched a bunch of videos on the Peak Design YouTube channel because I wanted to get certain ideas about certain things because told you last week we talked about I was like looking at the everyday pack, but I'm like just looking around some more, and there's a couple of things I wish that were out there that they don't make. But anyway, I was going to say I didn't use my packing cubes to their fullest extent. I watched a quick hot tips video on the packing cubes, and I'm like, oh, I could do so much more with my packing cubes, and I'm kind of excited for the next time I get to use them.
I know full well I don't use mine to their fullest extent, but it's because I use more than I need to subdivide more than I probably have to. But it fits, like, it works well for me.
Oh, no. I just gave me different, it's like what I did was what I wanted to do, but then I got these other ideas for like, they're like, here's what I'm, this guy was like, here's what I'm doing. And I'm like, oh, this gives me other ideas, and I really like them. And so I feel like it's going to further help packing for a flight on it. Like if I went on a trip again, like I did a few weeks ago, I think I could pack it even better.
Yeah, thinking about how I generally pack for travel, even with tips, I just don't know that I would change the way I pack.
There's no reason that you should.
I don't know. I might have to go look. I know that their YouTube channel, let's rephrase. Their videos in general are fairly high production quality.
Oh,
I
yeah.
enjoy watching them in any way just because of the way they do things. I haven't watched any of their videos on the packing cubes. I think the only ones that I've watched have been specific to the capture clip and the tripod, and it seems like I watched a couple of videos about the travel bags themselves. But it's not a channel that I watch everything that comes out of. So maybe I need to go back and watch some information on the packing cubes and see if maybe I gain some insights that might make me changed my ideas on how I pack.
It definitely changed my idea just because I think I can fit more into less, and it'll be cool. So
I think the main reason I haven't paid a lot of attention to it is because I typically use roughly 4 packing cubes of different sizes to subdivide stuff, but I always have room. Like whatever bag I'm putting it in, it's not like I'm hurting for space. So I've never felt like I need to find a way to optimize it any further because I just don't need to. You know, the way I'm packing is just subdividing types of clothing for my ease of use, not for trying to fit the maximum amount of what I could carry in a particular space.
Yeah. Anyway, that
on
was all.
That note, my away bag did show up, so I'm excited to finally use it this weekend. Actually,
what color did you get?
Coastal blue.
Oh, cool.
So Emily's bag is that fairly nondescript silver gray. It's more of a matte finish, so I consider it gray. I don't know what their official color is.
Gray.
Yeah, and I thought about ordering the same one, but decided that sounds kind of boring. So I decided to order it's a grayish blue that they call coastal. It's either coastal or coastal blue. I don't remember if they add blue as the descriptor, but it looks really good. It definitely matches the color that you see on the website. The only reason I'm excited to use it is because it's a new bag, and I have the problem with wanting to use bags, which is why I have
so many bags,
like 30,000 bags in general. But yeah, we're gonna just make a road trip down to visit some friends in Columbus this weekend, and I'm gonna pack it.
Very cool. Yeah, that's a good looking color.
It actually looks better in person than it looks on the website, in my opinion.
Their gray colors, actually, they call it asphalt.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, it's gray.
Yeah. The blue, so in person versus the website is slightly shinier than the actual in-person kind of matte finish, and I think the more subdued matte finish looks much better than it's portrayed. But like, I get that that's a realistic portrayal.
Did you get it with the battery?
Of course.
Oh, okay.
I didn't really have a reason to, because I also have an Anker battery pack, so now I have extra batteries. But why not?
Yeah. Yeah. Mine. I don't think mine. Because I got the nylon or the nylon fabric. I don't think
it's
the an option. It's the
one they branded. It's expandable. And that's what I was going to say. Yeah, I thought about going ahead and going that route, but because I've used the bag that Emily had a number of times, like the only time I don't use it is when we're traveling together. It serves all purposes that I need because of my large contingent of Peak Design bags that I can pair with it.
Yeah.
So I knew full well that the hard shell would be more than adequate for what I needed and would give me what I needed in conjunction with those other bags. So,
I look at, one of the ones I saw this in a video, and it was because I was looking at reviews of the away bag, and there was a video I saw, and it just sort of fit this like aesthetic that this woman had. She had the large white bag, the plastic bag, the hard polycarbonate bag, and I was like, it's a really pretty white suitcase, but after the first trip it's not gonna be as pretty as it used to be. My black nylon case has got plenty, like just from one trip, has plenty of bumps and bruises.
Yeah, so both Emily's bag and my bag are the carry-on size, and it's because of the type of travel that we do when we do travel. it's more than sufficient. Like anything larger, we just don't need. And part of it is because both of us are able to pack relatively concisely for an extended stay without too much of a problem. And part of it is because the secondary bag, we have just so many options to choose from, and all of them will fit without a problem as carry-on. So it's an odd situation where there's just no need for anything larger, which works out to our advantage, of course, because you can then make it be your carry-on bag, and then the other bag is the +1 like office / laptop / whatever bag on most U.S. flights anyway.
Yes.
And that seems to be more than sufficient for both of us to be able to pack for a week. Potentially longer, depending on kind of what we need to carry. But that's roughly the size set of luggage that we carried for the European trip for a week. And so if you can do a overseas different country 1 week with the equivalent of a carry-on and your quote-unquote additional like briefcase, laptop bag, etc.,
your personal item,
right, then you start to realize that having a larger bag that you have to check is just kind of overkill.
Yeah, I was gonna say, anytime that I've packed more than fits in a carry-on, I've overpacked. I've never gone somewhere long enough that I needed more. And when I went to California for my 3 weeks, I packed I didn't check a bag. I just had the carry-on, and it was enough. I also had access to a washer and dryer, but it was still, it was enough. I had all the things that I needed.
Yeah, when I spent a couple of weeks out there, I did do one checked bag and one carry-on, and I maybe touched half of what I took with me. And realistically, the reason I overpacked was because I didn't really know what to expect from a climate perspective. And so I added some things that I just wasn't sure maybe I'll need, maybe I won't, that were just bulky items in general. But in retrospect, I could have fit everything I needed in a carry-on with a little bit of pre-planning and would have been that much easier to navigate and deal with.
What time of year did you go?
It was toward the end of summer, first of fall. And so it was, you had that kind of maybe there would be a transition, maybe there wouldn't from a weather perspective. And so I packed a couple of extra things from a layering perspective that I probably would not have packed ever in the future, knowing what I know now. After a trip out there, it's real easy to say, all right, well, I know what I need to carry. But if I had just taken a little bit of time to do some kind of basic research, I probably would have arrived at the same conclusion without having to have the experience of going out there and not needing it.
I had a similar sort of issue in that I don't think I had enough jacket. I don't think I had a jacket at all, because I arrived Memorial Day weekend, and I thought, it's summertime, and I had shorts and t-shirts. That's what I had, and it was fine. I needed a jacket would have been useful at night, but I got by, and I didn't realize that like the time of year you went, it's like September and October are their hottest months, and it's like I wouldn't have expected that.
Yeah, the main thing that I remember needing is just an extra long sleeve shirt to just kind of toss over. Not like I didn't need a jacket, but I had taken a jacket as a precaution, and I didn't really need jeans, but I had taken jeans as a precaution. So it was one of those things where I expected temperatures to fluctuate, by a fairly significant amount, and they didn't fluctuate as much as I thought they would.
Yeah. If I'd known what I would have loved to have had my long sleeve icebreaker t-shirt when I was there. That would have been perfect.
Yeah, I think at this point, and this could lead into a whole nother discussion, so I won't go too far with it. I think at this point, I have some different options I would take. The icebreaker stuff would be good. I'm not disputing that at all, because it would solve a number of purposes. But I think I actually have something else I would potentially take that would be better.
We'll have to talk about that.
Yeah.
Maybe not tonight, but we'll have to talk about that.
No, I think we need to revisit the wardrobe conversations that we had early on, because I've learned some things and tweaked some things that I did not expect to tweak. That'll be a good teaser for later.
Yeah. Done and done.
And we'll see if we manage to target an hour and keep it under that for next week. I doubt it. I have a feeling. I'm going to call it now. We're going to hit an hour and a half before we manage to wrap it up next week. What do you bet?
I don't know. Are we talking about recording time or episode output?
Well, see, I'm in complete control of episode output. Like, I can just stop the show at 55 minutes, regardless of where we are in the conversation.
That's true.
No, I'm gonna bet that next week we still end up hitting an hour and a half of recording time, even though we target an hour, and we're gonna slowly rein it in after that. What do you think? You think we're gonna stay under an hour, or you think we're gonna go over?
I think we're gonna record over an hour.
Do you think we're going to hit the hour and a half mark, or do you think more optimistically closer to an hour, just over?
Ooh. See, that's hard because it depends on how many topics we decide to talk about.
I know.
Like, if we pick one topic, then I think we can keep it under an hour.
But see, this is like blind, because obviously I have no idea what we're going to talk about yet next week either. I'm just saying that we're going to be hit closer to an hour and a half.
I don't think you're wrong.
It's a nice way to put it.
I don't think you're wrong.
What I foresee over the next 4 weeks is we're going to hit an hour and a half, and then we're going to kind of finagle it and pay attention to it. And I think it's literally going to take us 4 weeks to get to an hour as an episode. And
we're going to figure out.
I think once we do, we're going to be consistent. It's just we're going to
It's going to take some time to walk it back. Yep. I think we're going to, in the next 4 weeks, we'll figure out how it is that we want to record shows to hit the target that we want.
Yeah. But a different way of saying the same thing that I'm trying to explain without necessarily knowing how to explain it. Because it's it's a big moving target because of how,
And then you get to, choose where you cut it off.
Yeah.
It'd actually be a really funny joke to, like, right at 59:59, we stop talking, or you insert silence and then let it pick back up.
Maybe I'll do that. Maybe it'll be a good way for us to realize where we need to pause. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see.
All right, I'm going to say one more thing and then we can be done.
All right, go for it.
I need Peak Designs to make a travel duffel that's like 20 liters or 15 liters.
Why so small?
I want a small gym bag, and I want them to make one for me.
But see, the duffel they make is 30 liters, right? Am I remembering that correctly? Or is it 35?
35.
But it doesn't feel that big.
No, it's not that big, and you can pack a lot of stuff in it. But I literally want a smaller one. And I know their answer to that is that you can get a strap and use the shoe pouch to do something like that. Like, they have a thing where you can use their anchors and a strap and attach it to the anchor attachment on the shoe pouch, and you've got a small bag, which is cool. But
so I have two of the duffels because I like them quite a bit. I have two of the duffels and two of the everyday messengers. Those are the two bags that I just really love in general. And I use one duffel as a gym bag. And yeah, I'm not packing it full, but I feel like it's the perfect size for a gym bag.
So I've got the 35, and I could use it as a gym bag, but I want a smaller one too to use as my dedicated gym bag.
I mean, I get it. The bags are so subjective. Like it's the reason I have so many different bags from so many different manufacturers anyway. Um, so I understand completely. It's just I have a difficult time wrapping my head around using something smaller than that 35-liter duffel because to me it's the perfect size for a gym bag.
I had this Timbuktu it's called the Hidden BFD, and it was a small bag. Like, it was a really small bag, and they stopped making it a long time ago. And mine is no longer, it's not salvageable. And I have gotten used to that small duffel.
Yeah, so I think that answers the question, actually, because I'm used to the larger, big duffels from other manufacturers, and so the 35-liter, it fits the same general size category, but it doesn't feel as big as some of the ones that I'm accustomed to using because they had that more rigid frame. It's not that it's a rigid frame; it's just
Right.
more shaped.
It holds its shape, yeah.
And because the Peak Design bag doesn't have that feel to it, it feels smaller than what I'm accustomed to using anyway.
Yeah, so I just looked up the specs on it. It's 20 by 10 by 8, or if it's expanded, 20 by 10 by 10, which is not a big footprint. When I picked mine up yesterday, I was like, I could use this as my gym bag, but I was like, ooh, but I'd like a smaller one. But the one I'm used to, like, I can't find good specs. I can't find good specs because, like, when I look at the product dimensions, it says 1.2 by 5.9 by 5 by 4.3, and that's not correct. I don't know where those specs come from. So anyway, it just was a thing I was thinking.
Well, and the other thing to probably keep in mind is I don't typically go to a gym, and so when I have gone to a gym, it's been me carrying my stuff plus stuff for Jacob going to the Y for swim. And
totally
so I do need a larger bag than what you're describing, even though I don't need that much more room.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, if I was taking my kids to the pool, yeah, I'd probably use my my duffel. I just thought of it, saying that made me think about what I really liked about it was that I could set it. So it had it was the kind of duffel that had the U-shape top opening, single opening. It's only like one it's just one compartment, and it was the U-shape, so you end up with a flap that you flip over. I could put it in the locker lengthwise. The length of the bag was the width of the locker, and it fit in there nicely. And that's probably one of the things that I really liked about it. Because there's not a lot. There's not a lot that I need to take to the gym. It's just a change of clothes and gym shoes.
Yeah, like as you were talking, if I just took a step back and thought about, all right, if I were only taking things for me, what would I need? I could probably fit that in the filled pouch, to be honest. Because what do you need? You need a pair of shorts and a shirt, and probably a change of underwear, just from a sweat perspective. And so that's not a lot of room. You just need something to be able to store like keys and wallet and all while you change, because your clothes can just go directly in the locker.
Mm-hmm. I'm using one of my small packing cubes for just a change of clothes that I keep on hand in whenever I go somewhere. It's actually cool because I can fit it in my glove compartment of my car, and I like that.
Yeah, makes sense. And I actually have more than enough packing cubes. Again, I have an obsession with bags in general, so I have a few thousand, even though I don't need them. And I know that I have extra packing cubes. I probably ought to actually do something similar and drop like my climbing gear into one of the small packing cubes and just drop it in the back of the Jeep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Speaking of, I need to get back out there and climb again.
Yeah. Hey, do you? Yeah, yeah. Do you have a shoe bag?
I do.
Okay. That turned out to be like a bigger. It turned out to be something that I like and found more useful than I thought I was. So, I've already talked about that though.
Yeah. So when they launched the travel line, I backed for the backpack, which when I did the kit, it included packing cubes, both small and medium. Or the camera packing cubes, not the regular packing cubes, both small and medium. And then regular packing cubes, I got, I think, 2 small and a medium, something to that effect, plus the travel pouch, plus the shoe pouch, plus the watch pouch, or the, not travel pouch, tech pouch, plus the shoe pouch, plus the watch pouch. Like I pretty much have all of the accessories in some combination thereof. And all of them serve their purposes well. It's all a matter of, do you really need to carry that many different pouches for a specific trip, or can you kind of merge and consolidate things? So being a little more fluid on what you use different pouches for can be beneficial.
Yep. And also, the things need to live in a place when you're at home as well.
Yeah, that's what I have a closet in the spare room / office / gym room for. I literally just stack my bags on top of each other off to the side. So,
well, this is a long one.
Yeah, it's still shorter than sometimes, but yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. Well, I think that's a pretty good place to call it. So this will be the last of the free roaming shows as we know it. And we'll see how the format works next week.
Sounds great.
All right. Well, with that, I think that's a wrap.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.